If you have any questions that did not get answered, please fill out the question form at the table. Yes. Once again, if you have any tickets that were handed out, make sure you get it in the bucket. We're about to have our drawing for the laptop. Please make sure you get your tickets in the bucket. I don't have the chance to win the laptop, but if I did, I would make sure that I got my ticket in the bucket. I could always use a laptop. All right. Once again, thank you for being here this evening. Sure. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for taking part in the roundtables. Raise your hand if you found that was valuable. Raise your hand if you found that the tables were valuable. I hope there were lots of people that found them valuable. Once again, this is a great opportunity for the board to get out in the community, to get out of the boardroom, to sit down with community members, community leaders, and have discussions one-on-one about things that may concern you or input that you would like to give to us. Before you leave this evening, if you have a question that did not get answered, please make sure at any of these tables there's a form that you can fill out with your question or concern or comment, and we will get back to you about that. So with that being said, I hope everybody has their ticket in the bucket. All right. We'll make sure you got a ticket, ma'am. Mrs. Haliger, our vice president, would you like to come up and pull the ticket out of the bucket? Once again, I want to thank PBK for the donation to make this happen this evening for the laptop. Everyone get your ticket out so you can make sure and cross-reference your number. All right.
Hey.
What do we have here?
The number is 765462. Last three digits, 462. Does this take care of lunch? It sure does.
Please give a round of applause. Wow. Huh? What? Hold on. I just got word that we have a second laptop. All right. Make sure you don't put your ticket away. Thank you, PBK. Thank you.
449. Last three digits, 449.
All right.
What's your name? Come on down.
All right. Mr. Rice. Mr. Rosenthal, Mrs. James, Mrs. Tossan. Mrs. Tossan, you want to come up here for the picture? Hold on. We got two more coming. All right. Congratulations once again. I would like to make one more announcement before we adjourn this meeting and we start our other meeting. The next event we're going to have in the spring on February the 10th at Pagan Grove Elementary, we're going to have our literacy tour. And if you've ever been to a literacy tour, we have a book, and the book is going to be given to every student that shows up. And our board is going to read the book to all the students that are there. And Once again, it's another great opportunity for us to get out of the boardroom, to get in the campus, to get in the community, and be face-to-face with our students and our community members. So February the 10th at 5:30, Pecan Grove Elementary. Great event. Kids get a free book. The board reads to our students. Lots of fun activities. Oftentimes we have some type of a character that shows up for the kids to read, or even the board president, even better. Thank you again for participating. We will begin our board workshop at 6:30. May I have a motion to adjourn? This meeting is adjourned, and we are going to start right now. I believe it's probably 6:30. That's right. All right. The time is 6:29 p.m., and this meeting is hereby called to order. We have the presence of a quorum, and this meeting has been duly called, and notice of this meeting has been posted for the time and manner required by law. We will now have our color guard come do our presentation of colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
You may be seated.
May I please have everyone's attention? Before the meeting begins, we ask everyone at this time, please silence your cell phones. The Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees meeting is an open meeting for the public to observe the board conducting district business. Therefore, patrons may only address the board during the designated audience item section on the agenda. If you have printed materials you want to give to the board members, you must provide them to Board Secretary Gary Rozier or to me, and we will provide them to the board. We also ask that members of the audience be respectful of others and remain quiet during the meeting so that everyone is able to hear the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, officer. One last announcement. We have a Spanish translator here.
Okay, so this is the announcement in Spanish. Para aquellos que necesiten o prefieran traducción al español, nos ven ahí al lado de la mesa de sonido y les damos un receptor. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to make two more quick announcements. I'm sorry, I forgot to recognize some special group of people here. First off, I want to thank the Marshall High School Air Force Junior ROTC, led by Chief Jesse Battle, for presenting our colors this evening. I would also like to thank the E.A. Jones Elementary students for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The students that did the Pledge of Allegiance were chosen because of their leadership and character traits for the profile of a graduate. Macy Ball, Jonathan Bass, and Veronica Mendez. We will now begin our workshop. First on the agenda this evening is one of our information items, first being the District Strategic Planning Process Update. Dr. Dupree.
Yes, sir. We're going to begin with, there's 3 items that are really going to be addressed in one, and I'm sure the staff will get into this, but we want to begin with giving a good overview to the board of the strategic planning process that was recently discussed with the Vision and Planning Committee. I'm going to turn over to Beth Martinez to begin.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree, Mr. Verdeen, board members. Good evening. We're excited this evening to present to you our strategic planning process and improvement planning process that has been a journey, and we're at a really great place. The purpose of this evening, and in combining the items that Dr. Dupree referenced, which are strategic plan, the superintendent evaluation, and our district and campus improvement planning process and performance indicators, is to show that connectivity and alignment from the boardroom to the classroom. And so to help us with the delivery of this presentation this evening, we have Dr. Audra Udy and Dr. Alice Ledford, and they'll be taking over shortly. But first, I would like to draw your attention to the first slide here that shows our central focus of all of our work and all of our planning efforts, the mission and vision that you set forth for us, as well as the board-approved goals and objectives. And we grounded and aligned all of our work in the planning and improvement process to these governing principles and to this foundational work. You'll learn about our 5-year strategic plan, the superintendent evaluation, which focuses on one particular year of the 5-year strategic plan, so this year's 1920 work that will be measured by you in Dr. Dupree's evaluation. It's important to know we've received some feedback on this document, and so we will be refining it and providing an updated copy to you already, and take your feedback this evening to continue that refinement process if necessary. We'll also be talking through the improvement planning, which is somewhat compliance-based, but we are still meeting all of the compliance requirements, but we are much more strategic in our improvement planning efforts than we've been in the past. And so you'll see that this evening in this, the structure for our 6 pilot campuses that are community-based accountability pilots. You'll see a different version of that campus improvement planning process and the way that that information will be shared with you. And then you'll see the more traditional campus improvement planning document. Dr. Udy will walk you through that, and just know from the onset that as we move to a full community-based accountability system in Fort Bend, we will move to that signaling process for all of our campuses. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Ledford to take you into the strategic planning process.
Dr. Dupree, it is now on. I'd like to walk you through the timeline of efforts that have brought us to today with regard to our strategic planning process. So in early spring, a core group of folks came together to identify some work priorities to help campus principals primarily initially understand the why behind the work that they were doing and how it all connected to the very items that Ms. Martinez referred to moments ago regarding the the mission and the vision, etc. Later in the spring, we transitioned that to our Goal 1 and Goal 2, focusing on student ownership of learning. The team focused on those 2 goals, and that information was shared with principals in May, and I'm delighted to be able to share with you that that was quite well received, and you do have packets in front of you that include the materials that were shared in May with the principals and other district leaders. Over the summer, the work continued. We continued working with Goal 3, Goal 4, and our Goal 2 as it relates to student ownership of behavior. That work culminated and was shared recently with the Vision and Planning Committee and is also provided for you this evening. That brings us to today, where we have the comprehensive district strategic plan for your review, along with Dr. Dupree's superintendent evaluation. So I want to anchor us back to our district strategic framework, which is the directional system that helps to guide all of our work in strategic planning, but also all of our work organizationally. As we were going through the process of strategic planning, it became evident that we were missing out on indicating our measurable strategies and milestones. That was not initially reflected on our strategic framework and has since been added because it is extremely important for us to align and have ways to measure our strategies and also to clearly articulate our milestones. You also have in front of you the board adopted district goals and objectives just as a reference item for you, as a reminder that these are the goals and objectives that we have been striving to articulate through our strategic planning, the efforts being made to accomplish these goals and objectives. Through the planning process, the core team identified keys to success. We identified key pathways, which again are our district goals and objectives, key support systems, which are strategic planning, community-based accountability, change management, and technology. Those support systems are very important as we execute our work. The key drivers are our policy, board policy, profile of a graduate, culture and climate, cultural competence, and we are further embedding additional cultural competence evidence in our superintendent evaluation and in our strategic plan. Also, leadership at all levels, and aligned resources. Our aligned resources are resources such as human resources, fiscal resources, and physical resources such as buildings, building modifications, etc. Further, roles and responsibilities were identified through our strategic planning process. This graphic should be quite familiar as it illustrates from the Board of Trustees throughout the organization what our responsibilities are, and what our shared responsibilities are include leading change and driving culture, knowing our work, communication and collaboration, modeling behavior, implementing, and also being able to provide and accept feedback. And all of this fits together as we have strategy and vision that help us execute successfully. You'll see this slide more than once in our presentation this evening. Again, this is our directional system as it connects our goals and our actions to deliver results. And you'll see our district strategic plan, our department plans, our district and campus improvement plans have alignment with our superintendent evaluation, our department leader evaluation, and our school leader evaluation. So each and every component on the screen are connected to one another to ensure that our goals and our actions end in positive results. In May, this is the strategic plan that we had to date that was shared with our campuses and with our district leaders, which identifies Goal 1 and Goal 2 for student ownership of learning. In addition, in May, the 4 progressions were shared with district and campus leaders. These progressions of practice help leaders to be able to know exactly what needs to take place in progression of practice for PLCs, for our blended learning, for formative assessment, and for student ownership of learning. Throughout the process, we identified a couple of gaps as we were trying to connect our work and are proposing this evening for board consideration an additional goal and objective for Goal 3 as well as one for Goal 4. So we're proposing this evening for consideration an additional goal, Objective 2. Fort Bend ISD will facilitate student choice through diverse and differentiated student learning experiences. So currently, there is no Objective 2 under Goal 3. This is what is being proposed and was shared with our Vision and Planning Committee earlier. Since that meeting, an additional goal and Objective 4 for Goal 4 is being proposed, that Fort Bend ISD will provide a safe and secure environment for students and staff. So moving us closer to today's work, through the process we became aware that it was important that we were using the same language as we were talking about what we're doing as an organization to reach our goals. When we say develop, does that mean the same thing to each person? So the team developed operational definitions for each of the terms that we use in our district strategic plan. You'll see those also at the bottom of the milestone document you were provided earlier. Now we have all of our milestones to address all of our goals and objectives 1 through 4, including our proposed 2 new objectives. And this is in your packet as well. Since the spring, the team worked to develop a student ownership of behavior, which is the far right gold document that you have in your packet. So this is a progression on student ownership of behavior that has since been added since the spring. And moments ago, I showed you the image that illustrates how all of the pieces are connected. This is our superintendent evaluation, and as Ms. Martinez mentioned earlier, we have received some feedback and expect to get some additional feedback to further refine our efforts on the 2019-20 superintendent evaluation document. But we wanted to share with you, again, the intentional alignment between the district strategic plan, the superintendent evaluation, district and campus improvement plans, as well as other evaluations that I mentioned earlier. And with this, I'm going to hand the microphone to Dr. Udy, who is going to walk you through the next piece of our presentation.
Good evening. I would like to be able to build upon the information that Dr. Ledford shared with you this evening in regards to the connectedness between all of our strategic planning efforts and our district and department plans. A concerted effort is underway this year to ensure that we have tight alignment between all of the various instruments of accountability. One way that we can demonstrate that is to look at the board-approved vision, mission, core beliefs, and goals as the core of our entire system. So it is what we look to as our directional system to help us be able to determine what is important to prioritize in each of the accountability instruments. And all of these instruments are connected with one another. So we start with the strategic plan milestones and utilize those systems to establish long-term systems in our campuses that will help us continually work toward improvement of student outcomes. The strategic plan is the 5-year outlook, whereas the superintendent evaluation is a 1-year outlook moving toward that 5-year plan. And then the district improvement plan contains the compliance elements, but it also helps give us direction for implementing systems that help support our campuses in a 1-year outlook. And then the campus improvement plan is intended to be specific to the needs of the campus, a 1-year plan toward achieving the district systems and milestones that are necessary to improve student outcomes. With that, we would also like to demonstrate that more clearly again in that the strategic plan is outlined in the milestones instrument that you have in front of you. That is the boardroom piece where you are approving the major work of the district and the initiatives that are in place over the next 5 years. The superintendent evaluation instrument is what helps hold Dr. Dupree and each of us accountable for ensuring those milestones are achieved. And then the district improvement plan helps us to take those milestones a step further by deciding what support systems campuses need in order to make the improvements that are necessary to help all of our students grow and to help close performance gaps. In addition to that this year, because we had the systems developed through the progressions of practice, we were able to utilize those with our campus principals and stakeholders as they work to decide what priorities to set with their campus improvement plans. So the progressions of practice will be reflected directly in the performance objectives we're asking you to approve for the campuses. We took a little bit of a different slant on the district improvement plan this year as well, in that we decided that in order to affect any change in the district, we needed to get more specific about the work that was occurring at the campus level through the progressions of practice and a variety of measures to assess formatively our students making the growth that they need to make, and then summatively at the end, have we met the goals and objectives that we set into motion. There are a couple of objectives that we do summarize at the district level because it's pertinent to our federal funding. For example, the progress of our Title I students across the district, both through formative and summative assessments. But in order to affect any kind of change and to support campuses the way we need to, we decided we needed to get much more specific with the metrics and milestones that are necessary to bring about that change for students. So imagine when we report back to you that you will see a matrix for each performance objective that has every campus down one side and every indicator across the top. And for every applicable indicator for a campus, there will be a yes or a no as to whether or not that particular metric was achieved. What that will do for us is highlight patterns so that we can see where to implement systems of support to help campuses move in the right direction and to help the overall organization make the kinds of improvements we want to make. Additionally, I will move you into an example of the campus improvement plans. You do have a document that outlines every single performance objective for every campus. In the campus improvement plan performance objectives, we have asked them to focus on the systems that are necessary to bring about the outcomes. Instead of taking a traditional approach where sometimes we wrote objectives focused on a particular metric, we are asking campuses to use all of the evidence that they have in front of them on a formative basis to assess if students are making the kind of growth. So we should not be surprised when we get to the summative assessment because we have a lot of information along the way to help gauge whether or not we're making progress. You will see examples in here of closing the gaps. Some campuses have chosen to focus on professional learning communities and to make those stronger by using student samples in order to gauge whether or not students are understanding or to help them understand where students have misconceptions about learning. You will see wellness addressed through performance objectives or strategies in the campus improvement plans, and more specifically, beyond the performance objectives, you will see a great deal of that addressed in the strategies and expected results for each strategy. This year, there were 3 paths to the campus improvement plan because we are in a transition period. We are moving from more of a traditional approach toward more community-based accountability. Instead of being accountable to state and federal metrics as our only goal, the district, the board, has set a vision for something much better for students around the whole child through the profile of a graduate and through the milestones that you approve through the strategic plan. It is our goal to ensure that we make progress with every one of our campuses in the direction of community-based accountability, where the ultimate accountability is to the child and to the community. So as we do that, we established 3 pathways this year. One was for the pilot campuses. We have 6 pilot campuses that began pilot work this year after training last spring. We also had a set of campuses that volunteered to utilize the hopes and dreams feedback that we received last spring within the Elkins, Hightower, and Kempner feeder patterns. And so they were able to use that feedback in their comprehensive needs assessment to establish their performance objectives. And then finally, the more traditional path until we begin to shift everyone in the direction of community-based accountability over the next few years. At the bottom of the pathways, you will see who the pilot campuses are, and additionally, the campuses that use the hopes and dreams protocol information to help guide their comprehensive needs assessment. This is the type of information we receive through the Hopes and Dreams protocol. This is one example for the Kempner High School feeder pattern. And what we are doing is collecting all of the feedback that has been provided by our stakeholders, which includes students, parents, staff, and community members. And then we look at how many votes did each get. There's an opportunity for all of the participants to vote. And we prioritize according to this color coding system. So green meant that item was the highest priority for that group of stakeholders. Blue meant it was the second highest priority. You will notice that, for example, in the student column, there are 3 items coded blue because there were equal votes for each of those 3 items. So we color-coded those as identical priority to the students. And then lavender would be the 3rd priority and beige would be the 4th priority. One thing that resonated with us as we conducted the first 3 stakeholder feeder pattern sessions in the spring is that one theme that continually came up was the goal of having social emotional learning for students and to ensure that students are getting access to mental health resources. So you will notice across all stakeholders in this feeder pattern that was a high priority. One of the things that we want to be sure to point out is that each of our campuses did a wellness needs assessment in relation to nutrition, exercise, mental wellness, et cetera, and are using that as a part of their needs assessment to write performance objectives or strategies and help move their campus in the direction of greater wellness for our students and for our staff as well. Finally, we have an example of the community-based accountability system. And you'll notice that there's more information here than we've probably ever received before in terms of approving campus improvement plans. We are testing this out this year and seeing what works and making modifications as we go. But basically, every campus who is in the pilot selected one or two pillars to focus on. There are 7 pillars in community-based accountability, and then decided on key questions. For each key question, they had to determine what their relationship to that question was. And all we mean by that is that the campus decided if there needed to be major change, minor change, or to keep running with how they were responding to that particular key question. Every key question starts with, to what degree are we doing these things? And each one of the 7 attributes of the profile of a graduate are included in those key questions. Then in the gray columns, we have all of our various accountability systems. So for example, the attributes within the profile, which ones of these key questions and work address those attributes, which ones address goal 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the board. We also ask each campus to have at least 2 student achievement objectives, 1 culture and climate, and 1 equity performance objective. So that is notated in this instrument. And then as each of our campuses have hopes and dreams feedback, they will also input this into their template. Only the Elkins, Hightower, and Kempner feeder patterns have that. We are conducting the rest of those forums currently through the beginning of November. And we will provide reports back to each of those campuses. And then the column with the color coding reflects the relationship of the campus to the question. So where you see orange or where we see orange, that's a signal to us that the campus feels that that's a major change that they need to make. One of the patterns that we saw with all 6 campuses is that they all felt they needed to make major change in increasing student ownership of learning. So that is a high priority within the community-based accountability campuses. And then the final column, the system response, what we would normally call the performance objective, is the work that the campus has prioritized to pilot this year. They were asked to concentrate on just a couple of areas to do their pilot work so that we could really learn and go deep with those areas. And as the year progresses, we will continue to build out their responses to all of the key questions. And then we will bring another 10 campuses in and train them to begin work next year in community-based accountability, moving in the direction of incorporating all campuses into community-based accountability. That concludes my presentation for this evening in regards to the district and campus improvement plans. We are asking your consideration for approval of the district and campus performance objectives at the board meeting on the 21st. Now, Dr. Ledford and I would like to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Ledford and Dr. Udi. Do we have any questions or comments, Mrs. James?
First, I have to unbury my microphone from all the paper. Thank you very much for a great presentation, and there's a lot of information there, and I know, having been on the community-based accountability design team and then gone through the vision and planning process, I recognize there's a lot of information there, so I appreciate you getting it all out to us in a succinct and understandable way. I really like a lot of what I saw here, and there's only, and so I won't go through all of that, but I am going to comment because I want to share with the board my opinion on one of the objectives that's been added, or that you guys are suggesting adding. So I'll actually share my opinion on both of them. So one is, I really like, and I see the need for adding the objective 2 to goal 3 that talks about the student choice through diverse and differentiated student learning experiences. I think this board's talked a lot about that, and we even discussed it at some of our tables tonight about the early college experiences and providing choice for students. And I think we want to continue to develop that. So I do like the addition of that objective. The other objective that you guys have suggested adding is the objective 4 under goal 4. And I recognize it talks about the safe and secure environment for students and staff. I think that a safe and secure environment is really important, but I see it as a support or a foundational activity, sort of like when we talk about finances and providing appropriate financial resources to support our board goals. So I feel like this, as an objective, belongs more in the support system, maybe with finances, maybe with, some of these other operational types categories. So I kind of explored that a little bit in looking at these materials with the superintendent evaluation, and I noticed that at the end of the superintendent evaluation, there were a couple of strategies there that were listed to support all 4 of the goals. And I feel like maybe this objectives belongs in that category. So that's just my opinion. Besides that, I appreciate your presentation, and I appreciate all the, I particularly appreciated the graph with the quadrants of the different tools that we're using, the district improvement plans and the campus improvement plans being on the bottom section, the superintendent evaluation, and the district strategic plan being in the top. I think that was a very good representation of really kind of what we're trying to do and where and how those documents relate to each other. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Burdine, and Dr. Udy and Dr. Ledford, thank you very much for an excellent presentation. Did I understand you to say the Vision and Planning Committee participated in this? So I would like to thank the Vision and Planning Committee for their efforts and their hard work in bringing this to fruition. We know that we have to comply with our state law and the STAR accountability system, but we have long wanted a student accountability system, as you said, that addresses the needs of the whole child and that's community-based and that we can share with our parents and teachers. And so I think this is really a very good step in the right direction, and how you've shown it all tied together with the superintendent evaluation, and because that's how Dr. Dupree gets his, knows the intent of the board, and then he goes out and achieves it with the help of the administration and every person in Fort Bend ISD. So I think it's very well put together, and I especially liked the access to the mental health portion across the board for all of our students. We're buffeted sometimes. Our worst nightmare is to have a tragic incident occur, and when it does, we're always trying to figure out what happened and why, and then we're assailed by voices who want us to arm all the teachers, and which I'm opposed to. We need fewer guns on our school campuses, not more. And so this is really a good way to help identify children who need help in a respectful way and get them on the path forward again. So I just really appreciate the hard work and the careful thought that has gone into preparing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Mrs. Towson?
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. I would echo some of the comments that were just made. It is extremely exciting to see really what we've been working on for several years now in the format of our campus and district improvement plans, and all aligned with our superintendent evaluation. And so I also want to say thanks for the hard work on that, but thanks also to our campuses who participated in the campus-based accountability pilot, and then our other, I guess, 10 campuses that are starting that. It's really exciting to see it come to fruition. So I too just want to comment on the proposed objectives. I agree with Mrs. James that the objective 2 for goal 3, I've had some time since our vision and planning meeting to think about that a little bit. The only thing I might propose adding is at the end, at every campus. I noticed in one of our, in goal 4, we were specific to put in at every school. And I just want to make sure that when we're talking about choice for students, that that we ensure that this is happening at every campus and not just at some campuses. And so that's the only thing I would propose there. I, like Mrs. James, struggle. This is the first time we've seen this proposed objective for under goal 4. I don't struggle with having it as part of our goals and objectives. I struggle with making it fit into goal 4 because when we developed goal 4, it was a collaborative communities goal. And so I started scribbling on my paper, Fort Bend ISD will facilitate partnerships in order to provide a safe, and the reason I was doing that is because I was trying to really make it fit into goal 4, which was really a collaborative communities goal. So I don't have a problem stating it. I think it's important to state it. I think, like Mr. Rice said, in this day and age when we're dealing with a lot of issues around safety and security in our schools, I think it's absolutely important for us to have it. But I wonder too if there's not because I think it bridges all of our goals and objectives. Like it's sort of like the umbrella over everything that we do is to be provided in a safe and secure environment for our students and staff. So I struggle a little bit with it being stuck under goal 4 for those 2 reasons. That I think it's broader than goal 4, and I think goal 4 is really specific to our collaborative communities. And we say safe and secure in goal 4. So I also struggled, I guess the lawyer in me struggled with redundancy under that a little bit. So maybe let's think about a better way to state that where we're encompassing everything that we do being provided in a safe and secure environment. And that's all I have. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tossan. Before I pass it to Mrs. Helliger, I wanted to make a comment about something you just said. When I think of safe and secure schools, I think about maybe not an umbrella, but the foundation. And so that's just the way that I approach that, or the way that I see that. So thank you for your comments. Mrs. Helliger?
Thank you. I also would like to ditto the comments of Mr. Rice and Mrs. Tossan and Mrs. James. You know, when we went through this and when you see the bigger document, I think about that session that we did at Kristen's house one year. And really? How different it is. Yeah, this is the improvement. Yeah. So I just, because what we were trying to do that year is to get to this. And this is, to me, is the birth of all that work that you started, and the changing we stopped. We changed the different approaches, and so it really shows the vision of the work that we wanted to get accomplished. We didn't quite get it there then, but this is definitely a great product from the staff, and so it's very much appreciated. I do have a couple of questions, one from our meeting, and I guess one from the comments that Mrs. James and Mrs. Tossan stated about safety, because I was looking at it as well. And I agree with Ms. Tossan. I definitely believe that it needs to be something that I think should be pointed out, in my humble opinion, and not necessarily, there's a lot of things that's foundational, like finance and whatnot, but when it comes to safety in this day and age, to me it's important for us to call it out. And I think about even at my own place of employment, some of my own goals, you would think it would be to be safe, but my personal goals have a safety measure in it. And so I challenge I mean, are we limited to only 4 goals? Can we have a 5? I mean, what makes us have to stay under just the 4 goals? I mean, is that what we're trying to keep at?
Well, so I'll tell you, no, we can have as many goals as the board would like to approve. I think if we go back in time, though, these goals and objectives are all primarily focused on strategic improvement of academics.
Yeah.
But then we've got the underpinning of the fiscal and the facilities and safety and security that would not necessarily align with this set of goals. So all are included in policy, actually, in a separate way.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, maybe there's a operational piece, an operational district goal that we can highlight.
That's a good point, because so it was our vision, it was the 3 of us, it was Vision and Planning who developed these. And we talked about that. I remember us talking about operational versus academic. At the time, we stuck to strictly student achievement, academic-driven goals. And when we drew our roadmap, remember we had finance and human resources and a lot of those operational things that supported the academics. But, I guess to Charles's point, if we wanted to, include safety and security as part of the academic piece as well, I mean, I think you make a good point that I don't, is it a goal 5? Because like I said, I don't think it needs to be an objective under 1 goal, but maybe a goal 5, or is it a statement over all the goals that says Fort Bend ISD will provide the following in a safe and secure environment? And I don't want to lose the metrics, but just thinking back on the work that we did, I remember having those conversations.
And the only thing, I think about if we put it as just as a statement, how do we measure it? We can't measure it, and we can't be accountable. I mean, so much to it, So it's something for us to think about, for us to consider as we move forward, as well as the second question. I know we had some talk, and I stated this, or I asked some questions around it last month when we had our accountability report. And we talked about it at our planning committee around the differences in our ethnic groups and how we have made some strides and how we can actually place that as a goal, because we say that we want to make a difference, and even though we are trending, is it above the state numbers or at state, kind of along with the state, if I remember it correctly? You all can correct me. But have we incorporated those statements or that discussion that we had at that vision planning meeting into this? Because I wanted to make sure that we have that as a metric so that we're just not talking about it. We're actually leading this state on how we make a difference in those areas.
So yes, ma'am, we are incorporating that, and there is still some build out around the cultural awareness piece, but as far as the closing the gaps piece, we have purposely integrated that into the metrics of the district improvement plan performance objectives, as well as in the campus improvement plan performance objectives and strategies. But also, you will see it on your milestone sheet as a milestone to close the gaps, and there are very specific metrics there that are a part of the strategic plan. And then that's also carried into Dr. Dupree's evaluation instrument as well.
Okay,
Yes,
all right,
ma'am.
thank you for pointing that out for me. Appreciate it.
Mrs. James?
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. I just want to pick up on the safety and security talk again. I agree with what you've said, Mrs. Tosin, Ms. Helliger, about this, and I think whether we consider it foundational or overarching, or I'm not sure what the right terminology is, I think it depends a little bit on what the staff means by the way this is written here, because if we're talking about mental health issues, and by safe and secure we mean bullying prevention and mental health and those kinds of things of our students, then maybe that fits in someplace one way. And if we're talking just implementing the overarching safety and security plan, then maybe that fits in a different place. So that would just be thoughts after having heard my colleagues.
I'd speak to that and kind of, because we do definitely need the board's guidance on where we go with this next. With what you just said, I think you've made a great delineation, because certain things like bullying that would be part of the social emotional, which is already included in the 4 goals. But if we're going to get more toward other security measures, the bricks and mortar and some of those things, maybe even threat assessment teams, that would be perhaps under a different domain. And I would, just based on the conversation, I wonder if we do need to broaden our thinking a bit and just create a 5th district goal. There's nothing wrong with having it. And if you look at the superintendent evaluation, you've got fiscal accountability, safety, security, facilities. That's easily a 5th goal that adds to the 4 we currently have. And they don't all, as Ms. Tassan, I think, said, they don't all have to be around academics. We can have the 5th goal that declares the board goals and intent around fiscal accountability, facilities, maintenance, and safety and security.
Yeah, so I like that, and just so long as it's written in a way that shows that's the support to our core business of teaching and learning, because all those things we're talking about have to point to our core business. And so I think it's fine to have it if it's worded the right way. So.
Well, that's why I think it would be number 5 and be written exactly the way you've described. That talk about we were going to achieve all of these things, the other 4, with these things in mind.
And the other thing I might like about that is that it also gives then a place for us to put our key performance indicators, the ones we've been talking about and have come up in internal audit and all of those things. So I think that would be a good placeholder for those metrics.
Mrs. Tassan?
Yeah, so I agree with that. I think it would be helpful if you guys could not only work on the language or maybe put something out there that defines how you guys envision it, and then that'll help us see what it is you're trying to accomplish, and then we can develop it from there. Maybe the Vision and Planning Committee can work on it and then push it back out to the board for approval. Because I just wanted to clarify, you're not asking for approval of these 2 this month, or are you? Okay, so then some more work probably needs to be done.
Well, the only thing I think that's critical that we get approved this month is the performance objectives. And I think those are more academic based. If we can agree to that, the superintendent evaluation, there's not a sense of urgency. We've typically done it in November even, or as late as December. We're just trying to get all the work aligned and kind of moving forward. So, but I think if we were to take a little time and do it, I want to take the time to do it right, not fast. Then we can bring it back in November. I think that would not be a problem at all.
Okay, I would be fine with that. I just want to make sure that we get this one right. And if we do need an objective under this or 2, then that clarifies it like we have with the others, or breaks it out into some like trauma-informed care or some of the things we're doing now, I think it's important that we get this one right. Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll get a draft together in the next couple of weeks and send it out to the Visioning and Planning Committee, because I don't think we've got another meeting scheduled unless the chair would like to schedule a meeting, but certainly we can work via email as well if we need to.
Yeah, email, or I'm willing to be available by phone. Maybe that works for all of us. So.
All right. Well, thank you all. My opinion is I think we should explore a 5th goal. So I like the conversation that was had here tonight. This was good, healthy board level conversation that I want the community to know the importance of being aligned from the boardroom to the classroom. This is a really good example of it, and this is how as a district we take it to the next level, is having all this alignment. And thank you for the Vision and Planning Committee for your work, and I look forward to seeing what we have here in the future. So,
if you don't mind, I would just like to acknowledge Audra and Alice, because
yes.
This is not an easy task to coordinate all of this, but they do a remarkable job with the detail. And so I appreciate their support and all their hard work to really bring this all to life. And I know they have a lot of people they work with to support them, but they're doing a phenomenal job of leading this planning effort.
I agree. Thank you very much. Appreciate your hard work. Great presentation. Moving on to our second information item, literacy programming, intervention, and Fort Bend Read strategy update, Dr. Dupree.
Yep, one of the most exciting things we have going on right now is our Early Literacy Center and Early Intervention Academy. So we've got the team who's been working on that. You're going to get a few results from our first year of implementation, and you're going to hear a little bit about where we're going in the future. So I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy Superintendent, Deanna Saavedra, to begin the presentation.
Thank you and good evening, Board President Burdine, members of the board, and Dr. Dupree. As Dr. Dupree mentioned, we will be providing you a comprehensive literacy update this evening that includes a number of components. We'll begin by providing you an overview of the literacy supports that we have in place organizationally. We'll then transition into discussing specifically literacy instruction and the interventions that go along with that. We are going to highlight our end-of-year data and the successes that we've experienced at the Early Literacy Center, along with our Early Intervention Academy. Then we'll transition into giving you an update on where we are with our pre-K expansion efforts. And we'll close the presentation this evening by sharing with you community strategies to engage our community in the literacy efforts that we have as an organization via the Fort Bend ISD Reads, and provide next steps in terms of our work for this current school year, 2019-20. Our presenters this evening are Stephanie Williams, our Executive Director in Teaching and Learning, Dr. Dina Hill, our Executive Director of Student Support Services, Carmela Levy-David, our Assistant Superintendent of Early Childhood and School Improvement, and Venitra Senegal, our Instructional Officer at the Early Literacy Center. Ms. Williams?
All right. Good evening, Dr. Dupree, President Burdine, and members of the school board. Tonight, we would like to share critical work that is in progress related to literacy, which supports our board goals. First, related to literacy instruction, we'll give an overview of the balanced literacy instructional model, the Fountas and Pinnell leveled literacy intervention, and the resources that support curriculum access for all students. Second, we'll look at programming data related to the Year 1 implementation of the Ridgemont Early Literacy Center, the Early Intervention Academy, and the launch of full-day pre-K. And finally, we'll look at our parent engagement strategy, Fort Bend Reads, the launch of Goodnight Fort Bend, and give you some information around the planned acquisition of community partnerships to support the work. Beginning with our balanced literacy instructional model, this is the instructional model used in all classrooms across Fort Bend ISD to ensure that we provide access to the curriculum for all students. The model integrates the reading and writing approach through authentic literacy experiences where students have opportunities to read, write, listen, and speak. Within the model, from time to time, we have students who are identified with a data need and they need additional support through small group instruction. And then using running records and our Renaissance 360 data, we sometimes identify students who are in need of Tier 3, what we call Tier 3 intensive intervention. These students identified through data receive intervention through the Fountas and Pinnell leveled literacy intervention and Soluciones model for bilingual students. It's important to note that in 2016-17, Fort Bend ISD transitioned away from reading recovery as our model for literacy intervention to the Fountas and Pinnell model at all 51 elementary schools. This year, we're proud to say in 2018-19, we expanded to 5 secondary schools where data identified a need for this intervention. The Fountas and Pinnell intervention model is an intensive reading intervention that focuses small group intensive support with students in order to support struggling readers in developing fluency and comprehension skills. The model has some fidelity components that we look at to ensure that when we implement the intervention, students are receiving what they need. This means that students meet 4 to 5 times a week with a literacy intervention teacher for 30 or 45 minutes per lesson in small groups of 3 to 4. And the really important factor is the intensive progress monitoring that teachers do related to fluency and comprehension.
After 3 years in the model, we felt it was important to institute an internal review of the level literacy intervention. And what we found from that review is that we have some strengths and we have some areas that we need to focus on. I'll begin with the strengths. First of all, we've increased the number of students that are served from 1,700 students to approximately 2,100 students, about a 400 student increase over the past year, and we have expanded to 5 secondary schools within that. We continue to see positive student growth outcomes related to this model, and we have a teacher literacy intervention retention rate of 80%. Related to areas of focus, there are 4 components that